Thank you.
All right. All right, so members of the jury, I'm going to read you what these stipulations are. But keep in mind, you'll have these, since they've been entered as exhibits, you'll have them with you back in the deliberations, during the deliberations, all right, back in the jury room. So you'll have these, but let me just read these to you so you can kind of have this as the case is going forward, all right? So Exhibit 184 is a stipulation regarding the postmortem toxicology testing of Cora Clancy. In the above captioned matter, the parties agree to the following facts as it pertains to post-mortem toxicology testing conducted for Cora Clancy. Number one, in accordance with laboratory policy and procedure, laboratory staff screen, analyze, and review samples submitted for testing using batch testing processing prior to final review and interpretation by the assigned analyst. Two, all policies and procedures were followed in this case. And three, in addition to forensic scientist 2, Alicia Zimmerman, being the assigned analyst and processing samples associated with case number 23-01875, Cora Clancy law. C, Marissa Dreyer and Seth Utter conducted further analysis on items 1-1-01. D, Emily McCall and Jacob O'Connell conducted batch review analysis of testing by Dreyer and Utter respectively. E, Tashi Washington conducted a technical review of the entire case prior to the issuance of Alicia Zimmerman's report. And F, Jennifer Mejia documented the measurements of the specimens collected for possible postmortem toxicology testing. So that's the stipulation on Exhibit 184 regarding the testing related to Cora Clancy. Exhibit 185 is a stipulation regarding postmortem toxicology testing relating to Dawson Clancy. And so, number one, in accordance with laboratory policy and procedure, laboratory staff screen, analyze, and review samples submitted for testing using batch testing processing prior to final review and interpretation by the assigned analyst. Two, all policies and procedures were followed in this case. Three, in addition to forensic scientist 2, Alicia Zimmerman, being the assigned analyst and processing samples associated with case number 23-01874, which was Dawson Clancy, laboratory staff had the following roles in the testing process. A, Brittany Massette and Natalie Law conducted screening analysis on item 1-1-01, which was the heart blood of Dawson Clancy. B, Hannah Knowles conducted batch review analysis of screening tests conducted by Massette and Law. C, Marissa Dreyer and Seth Utter conducted further analysis on item 1-1-01. D, Emily McCall and Jacob O'Connell conducted batch review analysis of testing by Dreyer and Utter respectively. E, Tashi Washington conducted a technical review of the entire case prior to the issuance of Alicia Zimmerman's report. And F, Jennifer Mejia documented the measurements of the specimens collected for possible post-mortem toxicology testing. All right, and that's the exhibit regarding Dawson Clancy. All right. And then the last stipulation at this time is Exhibit 186, and that stipulation is regarding the post-mortem toxicology testing of Callan Clancy. Number one, in accordance with laboratory policy and procedures, laboratory staff screen, analyze, and review samples submitted for testing using batch testing, processing prior to final review and interpretation by the assigned analyst. Two, all policies and procedures were followed in this case. Three, in addition to forensic scientist 2, Alicia Zimmerman, being the assigned analyst and processing samples associated with case number 23-0214, which was for Callan Clancy, laboratory staff had the following roles in the testing process. A, Brittany Massette was a screening analyst for item 1-1-01, which was blood from Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Plymouth. B. Natalie Law and Marissa Dreyer conducted further analysis on item 1-1-01. C. Hannah Knowles and Emily McCall conducted batch review analysis of item 1-1-01. D. Seth Utter conducted analysis on item 1-1-07, which was blood from Boston Children's Hospital, and 1-1-04, which was urine from Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, Plymouth. E. Nathaniel Almeida conducted batch review analysis on item 1-1-07. And F. Robert Anderson conducted batch review analysis on item 1-1-04. He also conducted a technical review of the entire case prior to the issuance of Alicia Zimmerman's report. And G. Jennifer Mejia documented the measurements of the specimens collected for possible post-mortem toxicology testing. So those are the stipulations at this time. Keeping in mind that you'll have those with you and everything that's contained there with you back in the jury room. Okay? All right. Commonwealth?
Thank you. The Commonwealth would call Alicia Zimmerman.
Good afternoon, ma'am. You start right here, raise your right hand first.
Afternoon. We solemnly swear that the testimony and the evidence you shall give to the court, here in the jury, no matter now time is between the Commonwealth and the Thank you. You may have a seat, ma'am.
Bunch of stuff, please.
All right. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Commonwealth.
Thank you. Could you please tell the jurors your first and last name?
Alicia Zimmerman,
Would you mind spelling your last name for the record?
Zimmermann.
And where do you work?
I work at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab.
And where do you work at the crime lab?
I'm in the toxicology unit.
And what's your role there?
I'm a forensic scientist too.
How long have you been with the crime lab?
Since August 2014.
And in order to work in the toxicology unit, did you receive some specialized training and education?
Yes, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Forensic Science from the Pennsylvania State University, and a Master's of Science in Forensic Science from the Virginia Commonwealth University. I also completed the toxicology's unit training program, which included wet lab work, literature review, competency exams, and written exams.
And in your role as a forensic scientist, too, at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab Toxicology Unit, you're familiar with the batch review testing?
Yes.
And as part of that process of working, the workflow being in batches, is it fair to say at various points, different members of the unit are assigned to different tasks within the toxicology unit? And at some point, you might be doing work on a case where you're actually asked to author a report at the end of the testing. Is that fair to say?
Yes, if you're authorized.
And are you authorized to issue reports?
Yes.
And what kind of toxicology testing are you authorized to issue reports for?
I'm authorized for postmortem investigation.
Now, as it pertains to postmortem investigation in the toxicology unit, where do samples come from?
So the samples are submitted from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner to the Evidence Control Unit in Sudbury. They then assign a unique LIMS number, it's a Laboratory Information Management System number, and a corresponding barcode to the evidence. They then transport the evidence to our unit in Maynard, and then we put the evidence into our custody, sample the evidence, and assign testing to it.
And so when a sample comes to you in a postmortem situation, that's because somebody has passed away, correct?
Correct.
And there doesn't always have to be a corresponding state police crime lab investigation.
No, our cases are separate.
So your case comes to you and gets a separate lab number from the crime lab.
Correct.
And it also is tracked by a lab number or a case number from the medical examiner's office, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you receive in the postmortem toxicology samples, do you sometimes receive blood?
Yes.
At times, do you also receive urine samples?
Yes.
What types of screening tests does the postmortem toxicology testing, what are the screening tests used in those instances, or those cases, I should say?
So every case that we receive gets 3 preliminary screening tests. The first one is a volatile analysis. The second one is an 8-panel of commonly abused drugs by enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, also known as ELISA.
And a screening test is done. If no substance is detected in either of those 3 screens, or if in a pediatric case, that 4th screen, what happens?
No further testing is performed.
And so if you are the reporting analyst in those cases, you would simply note none detected?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to draw your attention to a case that was submitted by the medical examiner in January of 2023. I think your unit might have reviewed the evidence in February of 2023. Are you familiar with the case involving 3 different postmortem toxicology testing, but all related?
They are 3 separate reports.
Right, but you're aware that the children that were the subjects were related?
Yes.
Okay. So just referring to first, what's identified as the state police lab number 23-2141 involving the decedent Callan Clancy. You recall receiving several items in the postmortem toxicology unit to test?
Yes.
And it included toxicology blood that was taken from the Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Plymouth, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
As well as blood that was collected from the Children's Hospital in Boston.
Yes.
And urine also collected from the Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Plymouth.
Yes.
And were screens done on the samples, namely the blood from BID Plymouth, the urine from BID Plymouth, and the blood from Children's Hospital?
Yes.
Were any substances detected on those 3 screens and the pediatric screen that you've just described to the jury?
No, they were not.
And as far as the next case, which would be laboratory number 23-01875, the decedent being Cora Clancy, you received some heart blood from the medical examiner's office post-mortem, correct?
Yes.
And as far as that, were those screening tests conducted in this case for Cora?
Yes.
And were there any substances detected?
No, we did not detect anything.
And as far as laboratory number 23-01874, which is the decedent substances, did you do anything further other than issue a report saying none detected?
No. I reviewed the data and then I issued the report with the none detected results.
If there had been any positive findings, additional testing would have been conducted, correct?
Yes, if we receive a positive screen, we will either perform confirmatory analysis or quantitative analysis depending on the testing.
And just as it pertains to these 3 cases, the samples received for Callan Clancy, why did they come from a different source than the other 2?
So the medical examiner sends us the samples. If the decedent is in the hospital prior to the autopsy, they will typically send us those hospital samples as well. They prefer to have the hospital samples tested because that date and time is usually prior to the decedent's death, and we can sometimes determine what sort of drugs or poisons may have been in that decedent's body prior to their death and before drugs may have been given at the hospital.
And once these tests are conducted in the postmortem toxicology unit, the results, where are they sent to?
They are sent to the medical examiner to go with their report.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right. Attorney Reddington. Questions? Thank you. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sit down. Thank you.
Attorney Sprague?
Thank you, Your Honor. Commonwealth College Sherry Crook.
Stop right here, raise your right hand to the clerk, please.
Good afternoon. Do solemnly swear that the testimony and the evidence you shall give to the court and the jury is not enough to prove the common law or the defendant's passion, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. You may have a seat, ma'am.
Watch yourself, please.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Attorney Sprague, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Good afternoon. My name is Sherry Crook, Sherri, last name Crook.
What do you do for work?
I'm a supervisor in the crime scene response unit at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory in Lakeville.
And how long have you held that position at the lab?
I've been a supervisor in that unit approximately 18 years, and I've worked at the lab for 26 years.
Can you describe for us your educational background, please?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Biology from UMass Dartmouth and a Master's of Science in Criminal Justice from Westfield State College.
And if you could just describe for us the nature of your work and your duties at the lab.
So my main job is a supervisor in the crime scene response unit. As a supervisor, I am a liaison for the state when crime scenes occur and a forensic scientist is needed. So I answer calls, figure out what type of services are needed. I then get forensic scientists to respond to areas. I oversee generally the southern region, which would be Plymouth County, Cape and Islands, Norfolk, Bristol County, but I do take calls for the entire state. I oversee the forensic scientists that respond to my area. I technically review reports. I also am involved in the criminalistics unit where I test and examine physical evidence for the presence of biological fluids. This would be blood, semen, and saliva, and trace materials, hairs, fibers, gunshot residues. These cases include fatal and non-fatal beatings, stabbings, shootings, sexual assaults, and motor vehicle accidents. We do the testing in the lab, similar to the testing at crime scenes.
And what type of training have you had to be qualified to be a forensic scientist in all these different areas at the lab?
So when I first began, I've always worked in the criminalistics unit. I went through a training process where I first observed trained chemists in the analysis of evidence. I then performed this analysis under the strict supervision of my supervisor. At the completion of each area that I was testing in, I took written and oral competency exams. So there are several areas in blood, semen, saliva that we take tests on to prove our proficiency.
And have you passed all of these competency tests?
I have.
And have you passed all of your proficiency tests?
I have.
Does your casework go through any type of review process?
It does. It goes through a technical review as well as an administrative review.
And have you had any specialized training in the field of forensics?
I have.
And what type of training?
So I first had training in the lab, and then I have had external training that has included bloodstain pattern analysis training, crime scene reconstruction training, and a microscope class.
And are you affiliated with any professional organizations?
I am. I'm a member of the IABPA, which is the International Association of Bloodstain Pattern Analysts.
And you've testified in court many times in the Commonwealth, correct?
I have.
Going back to what you talked about bloodstain pattern analysis, can you describe the training you've had in that field in particular?
So it first began with taking a 40-hour course in the basics of bloodstain pattern analysis. That was used in my original training at the laboratory. It consisted of a 40-hour course where we do experimentations, look at bloodstains, and prepare reports, as well as taking an exam at the end. So that was my original course that I took. I've since taken 7 other additional courses that include another basic blood stain class. I've taken advanced blood stain pattern classes. I've taken fluid dynamics of blood stains, and I've also taken blood stain classes on fabrics.
Now, do you undergo any continuing education after all of that training on blood stain pattern analysis?
I do.
Can you describe that?
So we continually get training every year. We have to do at least 8 hours, which could be training from readings, attending a course, attending workshops that we have through the IABPA, some sort of educational trainings.
And is blood stain pattern analysis, that discipline, is it accredited?
It is.
How so?
It was accredited through our lab during our accreditation in 2008. It became accredited for the Mass State Police Lab.
And is it still currently accredited?
It is.
And do you have to take proficiency tests specifically in blood stain pattern analysis?
I do.
How often?
Take a yearly test from an outside vendor agency.
And have you passed all of those tests?
I have.
And have you testified in courts in the Commonwealth about blood stain pattern analysis?
I have.
And how many times have you done that?
I've testified as an expert more than 10 times in Plymouth County, Bristol County, Norfolk County, and Cape and Islands.
What is a blood stain?
A blood stain is a deposit of blood on a surface.
And what would be a blood stain pattern?
A blood stain pattern is stains on the surface by which we look at it and identify how it was created.
So could you describe for us what blood stain pattern analysis is?
So blood stain pattern analysis is the examination of blood stains and blood stain patterns by which that they are deposited on a surface. We can give information about how the blood was deposited as well as how the incident occurred to deposit those blood stains.
And are there different blood stains and blood stain patterns? And are there terms ascribed to those that tell you what kind of patterns they are or what kind of blood stains they are?
There are.
And what are some of the features and characteristics that you look at when you're performing your analysis to determine the type of stain or pattern?
So we look at specifically the size, shape, and the distribution of those stains. With looking at that information, we can tell you the how, what, when, where, and how things were created by looking at those stains. That information, the size, shape, and distribution will answer some of those questions.
Can you tell the direction of a blood stain pattern?
You sometimes can, yes.
And how do you go about doing that, and why is that important?
So in some stains, there is an identifying feature that we look for. It's called a tail. So when blood flies through the air and lands on a surface, it usually will land in an oval shape, an elliptical shape that may cause it to have a tail. The tail is an extension of that elliptical shape. We use that to identify the direction that the blood is traveling. So the tail will point in the direction that the blood was flying when it landed on a surface. So we can tell by that tail where that stain may have originated from.
And are there different categories of stains?
There are.
And what would those be?
We describe them as passive stains, transfer stains, and dynamic stains.
And could you define what those are?
Sure. So passive stains are stains where only the force of gravity is acting upon that stain. Some of the examples would be a drip stain, a flow, or a blood pool. We have transfer stains, which are stains that are created when a bloody object or body comes into contact with another surface, transferring that stain there. We have smears or wipes. And then for dynamic stains are where a outside force has been acted upon the blood. A forceful force that has projected the blood onto a surface, either by projecting it out or compression that projects the blood out. In that case, we have projected blood patterns, arterial spurts that are used that term as dynamic stains.
And in your analysis, you use the word target.
Yes.
And what does that mean in blood stain pattern analysis?
So the target is the surface that the blood stain lands on. Could be a floor, a wall, anything that the blood stain lands on.
So for example, if I have a cut on my arm and blood drops to the floor as I'm just standing here, would that be a passive act and the target is the floor?
So yes, it'd be a passive act because just gravity is reacting with that blood, pulling it to the ground, and the floor would be the target surface that it landed on.
What is a drip stain?
So with that example, if you have a blood source, say I have a cut on my finger, I hold my finger out, gravity acts on that blood, pulling it to the floor, that would be a drip stain, a single stain hitting the floor due to gravity.
What would be a spatter stain?
So a spatter stain is a stain where some sort of force is acted on it. So if you think about my finger again, and the blood is coming out, if I apply force to my finger, if I flick it, the blood is now flying in the air and landing on a surface, say a wall. It will land in an elliptical shape, and it will be considered a spatter stain.
And are you familiar with the phrase cast-off pattern?
I am.
And what is that?
So a cast-off pattern is a collection of stains, usually elliptical or circular in shape. It's created when blood flies off of an object. So if you think of my finger again and the blood is coming out, if I take my finger and I swing it up over my head, the blood is going to release as it goes along, creating elliptical stains, circular stains, and more elliptical stains. The cast-off pattern is created in a linear form, so in a line of those stains.
And what is a transfer stain?
So a transfer stain is when a bloody object comes into contact with a surface. So if you think of my hand, and I put it on the top here, and blood is left behind, I lift it up, that's a transfer stain of blood.
And what is a wipe?
So if you think of my hand, it's a transfer stain, a wipe is. You think of my hand and there's a blood pool on the surface and I run my hand through that blood pool, I'm wiping that blood, causing a wipe stain. The original stain, which is a blood pool, would now be called an altered stain because there is movement through that stain when I drag my hand through it.
Is a swipe different than a wipe?
It is.
What is a swipe?
So a swipe is a transfer of blood, but say I've made that wipe stain and I lift my hand up and I have blood on the surface, I then go to a clean surface and wipe it on that, that would be considered a wipe stain. So a swipe stain, excuse me. So wipe is going through the blood, I lift
Thumbs
it.
up emoji.
Swipe
Thumbs
is
up
taking that
emoji.
blood and applying it to a secondary surface.
And what would be a smear?
A smear is usually a combination of swipes and wipes. If there is a blood pool on the floor and you make lateral movements for it, say you had a socked foot or a cloth that you were wiping it with, using those lateral movements going back and forth would be considered a smear.
And what is a pool?
A pool of blood is a liquid portion of blood accumulated in one area.
So if I'm, for example, standing here and again have a cut on my arm and blood is just dropping in that same area, is all the blood that gathers there considered a pool?
The stain itself is not considered a pool. We use it to identify blood from a source. So if there is a body laying down and there's an injury and it's seeping out of the injury onto a surface, that would be considered a blood pool. What you have described as a different type of staining.
What would that be?
That would be considered a drip pattern, where you're dripping just due to gravity. The blood falls. It falls into another liquid source. In blood stains, it's usually blood into blood. When that drip is hitting and they're hitting each other, it's causing an accumulation on the floor, and the stains that are formed, the accumulation of blood as well as smaller stains would form the drip pattern.
And sticking with that for a moment, if the blood is falling and the person is moving, does that create some type of trail or something along those lines?
It does. So we would identify that as single drip stains, and then if it's in the a line with some movement, that would be considered a drip trail of the drip stains.
And what is a saturation stain?
So a saturation stain is similar to a blood pool, but the surface that is on is an absorbent surface. So it's a portion of liquid blood on, say, a mattress or a carpet that seeps into that absorbent material.
And what about a satellite stain?
So a satellite stain is a secondary stain. So if you think about my drip stain, as it's dripping from my finger, as it hits the ground or the surface, it can break apart. Though when it breaks apart, those little stains are called satellite stains. They come from the original parent stain.
And what about the term flow?
Flow is a term that we use when there's an accumulation of blood on a surface and there's enough that gravity can take hold of it and pull it down. So if you think of water dripping down a surface, or if there's a large accumulation of blood, it'll create like a stream going down to where gravity is.
And are there some blood stains where no determination can be made?
Yes.
And how so?
So we have some blood stains that just don't give us enough information by their size, shape, or distribution. So sometimes we can just generally call them red-brown stains. When we do our examination, depending on what we're examining and how we're examining it, say it's a blurry photo, we may just call it a red-brown stain because we cannot identify anything from the features because the photo is bad.
And how are blood stains typically documented at a crime scene?
So there's a trained forensic scientist that is at every scene that we document as far as blood stain pattern analysis. They are trained in documenting the stains as far as a sketch. We also document them with ruler tape. We want to know how high up stains are from the floor, and we also use very small ruler tape with individual stains. That tape is used to show the size. It is then photoed by crime scene services. They'll do a far away shot so we can get the whole information in one shot. They will do a medium and then a close-up of stains so we can get the sizes of the stains. Those photos are used for documentation and reviewing when we do our exam.
And do you do your interpretation and analysis at the scene or through photographs?
So with those photographs, we do the examination back at the laboratory.
I want to show you some things on the screen here. Are you familiar with this slide here?
I am.
And how are you familiar with it?
So that is a slide that pictures of drip stains that I've used during my trainings to show how the stains were formed when it hits at a different angle. So depending on how it hits on an angle is how it will form. So the bottom stains, which are more circular, will fall at a 90-degree angle. And as you get to more of elliptical shapes, they fall at different higher angles when they hit the target surface.
With these that are shown here, labeled drip stains, these are all drip stains. It's just how they fall at different angles.
Correct.
Mark this as this exhibit.
Any objection? All right, that may be admitted.
It's 187. And showing you this next slide. Are you familiar with this slide?
I am.
And how are you familiar with that?
So this is pictures of spatter stains. So this is blood that is in flight. Some force acted on the blood to cause it to fly. And you can see the elliptical shapes that it has created.
And when you say elliptical, you're talking about kind of the oval shape.
I'm talking about the oval shape, and as also how I described the tail. Some of them are evident on the bottom side of those elliptical shapes, showing the direction when they hit the target they were moving.
So where the tail, so looking at this slide here, this small middle photo at the top, where the tail seems to be at the bottom. what does that tell you about the direction of that stain?
So if I may refer to the one on the right, it's a little bit more descriptive. So the one on the right, may I stand?
Yes, please.
If you look at these stains, they are elliptical in shape, and they all have an extension, which we call the tail. So they're hitting the wall, and the tail is pointing in the direction that it is moving. So we have the elliptical shape and then the extension. So they are going from a left to right in a downward direction.
I could have this marked as the next exhibit.
All right, that may be admitted.
188.
Thank you.
Then showing you this next slide. Are you familiar with this?
I am.
And what are we seeing here?
So this is an example of a projected pattern, which is one of those dynamic stains. On the left is an arterial spurt. So there was an artery cut, say it was in the arm. With the compression of that blood, it is projected out and it has landed on the wall in a curvy, linear fashion.
And you said, did you say that's on the left?
On the left, yes.
And what about on the right?
That is the blood when it hits the ground on the right.
So on the left, it's hitting the wall, and then on the right, it's dripping down to the ground?
Well, it's projecting out and hitting the ground. It's not dripping onto the ground. It's coming out of the blood source and hitting the ground.
Okay, so would it be accurate to state that for a spraying type of flow of blood, say from an artery, that's on the left is what it would look like as it hits a wall, and on the right is what it looks like hitting the floor?
Correct.
We could have this marked as the next exhibit.
Any objection?
No.
All right, that may be admitted.
189. Now, were you asked to do blood stain pattern analysis on this case?
I was.
And what did you use in terms of materials to conduct that analysis?
I used photographs that were supplied from crime scene services. I utilized reports that were written by Maureen Hartnett, the chemist.
And were there stains that were labeled by letter?
They were.
Okay. Did you label them by those letters, or did you use the letters that were in the prior reports?
I used the letters that they were labeled in the prior reports.
And so to start with, did you look at what was labeled stain A on the floor of the basement at 47 Summer Street?
I did.
And showing you this page here, what are we looking at here?
So this is a page of my notes when I was doing my exam. So it has a picture of the stains themselves and then all of the identifying factors written in my handwriting when I was doing my examination.
And when you did your examination on this item, what did you determine about the blood stain?
So that is a red-brown stain on the carpet in the basement. It was deemed a saturation stain with transfer stain surrounding it. So you have the center stain that's darker red. That is the saturation stain. And then surrounding it there is lighter red-brown staining that was a transfer from that saturation stain across the carpet.
And you're not able to say how that transfer happened, correct?
I am not.
But basically, looking here, this larger area in the middle of the bottom photo, that's the original saturation stain where it's soaked into the carpet.
Yes.
And then at some point, something touched this saturation stain and then touched to the side of it.
If I may.
You may, sure.
Please.
So this is the saturation stain in the center, and then surrounding it is the lighter red-brown. That is the transfer as something moved across the actual saturation stain.
And what about the mark to the left there?
I think that's just another portion of the saturation stain.
Okay. Move to submit this as the next
All
exhibit.
right, that may be admitted.
190. Did you also look at some blood stains on the floor of the master bedroom?
I did.
And specifically referring to stain B, showing you what's been marked SJC. SJC, are those your initials?
They are.
E12. These are also from your notes, is that correct?
They are.
And is this from the master bedroom floor between the mirror and the bed?
It is.
Okay. And what did you learn from your analysis of this item?
So from my analysis in looking at the stains, there's a couple of different things going on here. So they're the round circular stains, which are on the outside, are drip stains. So that is blood coming from a bloodletting event and going to the ground just due to gravity. The stains that are overlapping are considered a drip pattern. So standing there for a period of time, the blood is dripping due to gravity into itself, causing the overlapping stains as well as the small stains that are all surrounding it. Over here on the right side, there is some movement through the some of the red-brown stains, causing them to have lateral determination, and so those would be smear stains. So they're originally drip stains that were smeared through.
And showing you E13 from your notes, is this a close-up of that same area?
It is.
And if you could just point out again for us in this lower photo what we're looking at here.
So this is just a close-up of it, showing some of the drip stains that are singular by themselves, and then the drip pattern itself, so that is blood dripping into blood. And then the top one that's not in view will have a close-up of the smear stains. So movement through those blood stains.
We could have E12 as the next exhibit and E13 as the following.
All right, that may be admitted.
Exhibits 191 and 192. And just for clarification, showing you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 159. That's that same area for E12 and E13.
It is. The staining on the ground is right in front of the mirror, and the bottom portion is the bed, so between the mirror and the bed.
Now showing you what's been marked previously as Exhibit 161. Is that the mirror we were just discussing?
Yes.
And did you do an analysis on the blood stains on the mirror?
I did.
Showing you what's been marked as E14 in your report. I'm just going to zoom in here to the top photo. Now the stains have been marked there with a ruler, correct, as you described previously?
Correct, yes.
And then in the lower left, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
So this is a close-up of the stains from the top picture with the ruler attached.
And what, if anything, were you able to determine about these blood stains on the mirror?
So the bloodstains themselves were elliptical in shape, so it did give me some information. There was a larger amount of blood, so you can see on the stains that it starts to go down the mirror. That's due to gravity, so we call that flow. Because they were elliptical in shape, there are two different categories that they could go into, which would be a drip stain that just landed at an angle, or actually a spatter stain, which is a blood in flight. Because I couldn't tell the difference, but I did limit it down to either a drip stain that fell at an angle or a spatter stain that was forced onto that mirror. So I couldn't come to a definite conclusion, so I brought it down to either a drip stain or a spatter stain.
So would it be accurate to say it could either be from someone being near the mirror bleeding and blood dropping on it, or someone with blood or an instrument or something with blood on it moving and spattering the blood on it.
Correct, either of those motions.
We could have E14 as the next exhibit.
All right, that may be admitted.
193. Showing you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 162. This is the bedroom windowsill.
Correct.
And showing you a close-up at 163. Did you examine this blood stain?
I did identify it as stain D.
And what did you determine based on your training experience about this blood stain?
This blood stain didn't give us too much information. It was irregular in shape, so I couldn't tell exactly what it came from, but I did classify it as a transfer stain. So something bloody, having a red-brown stain, coming into contact with a non-bloody surface, leaving that stain there. So a transfer stain on the windowsill.
Did you also examine the nightstand in that same bedroom?
I did.
Showing you what's been marked Exhibit 164. Is this the area that you examined?
I examined the whole area, so a picture that shows the whole knife and then the area surrounding it.
Examined?
It is.
And can you tell us what, if anything, you determined from examining the bloodstains on the nightstand?
So I identified 2 different types of blood stains in that area. There's a point on the bottom portion here as well as the top. They are circular stains. Those would be drip stains, so blood coming from a bloody area due to gravity falling onto the nightstand causing the circular stains. So those would be drip stains. I also identified the linear blood stain up at the top, which is to the right of the knife. So that is a transfer stain from the knife itself. The bloody edge of the knife came in contact with the nightstand and left that stain there. Once that stain was left there, it has since been moved, whether someone knocked into the table or actually pushed the knife over, I can't tell you, but it was originally in the position where it left that linear stain. So drip stains and then a linear red-brown stain.
And are you able to determine that that was the original position of the knife based on the fact that the line tracks the shape and size of the knife's edge?
I wouldn't say that it's an original location, but it is a location that that knife was at for a period of time for that blood to transfer onto the table.
Because you can't tell the order of when these blood stains happen, correct?
At our lab, we don't necessarily do an order in our examination. There are some things we can tell you an order to, so I know at some point that it was on the table where that linear stain is and has since moved from there. But I can't tell you if that was the original location that it landed.
We could have this photo marked as the next exhibit, please.
It may be admitted.
194. Showing you what's been marked SGC E17 from your notes. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
So that was stain F which is a red-brown stain in the snow below the windows of the bedroom.
And what, if anything, were you able to, what are you able to tell us about this stain based on your training and experience?
There's not much information that I can tell you from that stain. It's a diluted red-brown stain. It's irregular in shape, so I just classified it as a red-brown stain.
So that's an example of what you had told us previously in your testimony, that sometimes you just don't know.
Correct. The pictures were sufficient to see areas of the stain. There's just not a lot of information in the stain itself to determine what it is.
We could have E17 marked as the next exhibit.
Sure. That may be admitted.
Did you also look at some stains on the floor of the master bedroom entrance?
I did.
Showing you a photograph here. Do you recognize what you see here?
I do.
And what is that?
So those are red-brown stains at the doorway to the entrance of the bedroom.
And at some point in time, we'll strike that. What, if anything, can you tell us about these blood stains?
So the pictures that were taken were never taken with a ruler tape, but the pictures are good enough that it gave me information on how those stains were formed. So I was able to determine that those are drip stains on the floor.
And just zooming in on those a little bit. Again, what we have here, similar to some of the other stains you call drip stains, that's that circular spot of blood.
Yes, circular stain where gravity took a hold of some sort of blood and brought it to the floor, causing those circular stains.
And as you described earlier, is that consistent with the blood falling at a 90-degree angle?
Correct.
So straight down.
Correct.
We could have this photo marked as the next exhibit.
That may be admitted.
Excuse me. Did you also look at what's depicted here in Exhibit 46?
I did.
And looking at what you've marked in your notes as E21, are these 3 photos of that same area?
They are.
Okay. What can you tell us about what you observed when you looked at these blood stains?
So these stains were further up on the side of the bed from the area that was between the bed and the mirror. Similar to the stains that were between the bed and the mirror are stains up here which are circular in nature. So there are drip stains and then an area where the drip stains fell into each other, causing another drip pattern. So this is a drip pattern with singular drip stains in an area between the bed.
And showing you another photograph, does this depict that same area but also going over towards to the right of the nightstand?
It does. So this is the area on the left side of the bed. Down below it is the area that was between the bed and the mirror, and the window is up over here. So you can see the singular drip stains, you can see the drip pattern where blood is dripping into blood, and then all of the smaller stains are the satellite stains that occur when the blood is hitting and causing it to fly.
Are you able to look at the stains here and the drip pattern and tell whether there was any movement or in what direction the movement was?
We can't tell what type of movement there was because they are circular stains. The only thing we can say about this is for a drip pattern to be formed, there has to be a stationary blood source. So you have to, say it was your finger, you would have to stand there for a while and allow the blood to drip out into each other, causing that drip pattern. So we know, or I've deemed that there was a period of time that the blood source was in a stationary position, causing that drip pattern.
And the amount of time that it would take for that amount of blood to pool, would that be dependent on the wound and how it was bleeding at the time?
Correct.
And you can't tell that from the photograph, correct?
Cannot.
We could have this photograph marked as the next exhibit.
That may be admitted.
197. Show you some photos of the exterior of the house. What's been marked as exhibit 106. What's been marked as exhibit 105 and 108. Are these areas or photographs that you examined as part of your analysis?
They are.
Showing you what you've marked E19 from your notes. What can you tell us about the patterns we're seeing here on the shingles on the exterior of the home?
So these are photos of the red-brown stains on the shingles between the second and first floor window. A far away view up in the top left, and then closer pictures blown up to show the red-brown stains. There were two areas, and then there was some excess of blood. You can actually see it dripping down.
I'm going to object to the concept of blood because we all know that that was never tested.
It actually was tested.
All right. Can I see over here?
Sidebar. Are you guys behaving in here? Explosive details. Oh my god, they're so awful. It's 3:17. I wonder what they're gonna do. It's a lot of blood. Well, like Patrick said, it looked like someone sprayed a hose. Well, at least I got my bathroom cleaned. That's what I was doing while I listened. She's a nobody. She doesn't even have a YouTube anymore. Why are you talking about her all of a sudden?
All right, Attorney Sprague.
Thank you. And so we, in the upper left-hand corner here, we have the upper window and the lower window, correct?
Correct.
All right, and I'm going to zoom in here on this upper right-hand photo. What are we seeing here?
So those are areas of red brown staining on the shingles between the second floor window and the first floor window.
And what, if anything, can you tell us about this red-brown staining on the shingles underneath that open window, based on your training experience?
So those two areas, which were to the left and the right below the window, were identified as transfer stains. So a bloody object coming in contact with a surface, leaving the blood stain there.
So that would have to be an actual, something with blood on it touching that shingle, those shingles.
Correct.
And showing you below that, the small photo to the right, what is depicted there?
So this is an area of the transfer stain where there was an accumulation of blood that was coming off as a droplet off the bottom of the shingle.
And showing you E20 from your notes, perhaps a little bit clearer here. The top right photo, is that same area of red-brown staining that you saw under in the photos underneath the open window?
It is. So the one
Get up and
yeah.
point it out with the court permission? Sure.
So the window is up above. So to the right, looking at the window, is an area of the red-brown staining. To the left is the other area of red-brown staining. That left one had the accumulation of blood that was a droplet coming off the shingle.
And the two photos at the bottom there?
Those were a blow-up of the right-hand side red-brown stain. As you can see my arrows, they're pointing to the picture above, showing a close-up of the stains.
We could mark E19 as the next exhibit and then E20.
All right. Any objection? No. All right, that may be admitted. Or they may be admitted.
And then showing you what's been marked as exhibit 105. And zooming in here on the open window and the orange ball there at the bottom, the red-brown staining right above that. Did you examine photos of that?
I did.
And showing you your notes E18. Is that a close-up of that red-brown staining on the open windowsill?
It is.
And what, if anything, can you tell us, based on your training experience, about this area?
So similar to the stain that was on the inside of the window on the windowsill, this stain on the outside didn't give me enough information to say the size or shape. So the only thing I could come to the conclusion was that it was a transfer stain. So some sort of bloody object coming in contact with a surface causing the transfer of that blood.
And are you able to tell the direction of that blood or how it was applied or anything like that?
There's not enough information in that stain to give that conclusion.
So basically all you can tell us is that something with blood on it touched that windowsill and left blood. Something with a red-brown stain on it touched that windowsill and left a red-brown stain.
Correct.
We should have E18 marked as the next exhibit.
All right, that may be admitted.
And then showing you what's previously been marked as exhibit 108. The top of the first floor windowsill. Did you examine those red-brown stains?
I did not.
I have no further questions.
All right. Mrs. Reddington.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Just a couple of questions. You are, is it correct, you're a trained scientist? Is that what you're referred to, or?
I'm classified as a forensic scientist at the supervisory level.
Okay. And Maureen Hartnett would be classified as what?
She's a forensic scientist as well. The step below me, forensic scientist 2.
Okay. And is she the one that does testing on objects or items or substances to see if they're a particular, for example, blood?
She does do that. She is also trained in documentation of blood stains. So generally, that's why we do a lot of our examination through photos. So a forensic scientist 2 could be at the scene, do all of the documentation, make sure the photos are taken, and then those are examined back at the laboratory by in our case in Massachusetts, it's all supervisors in the crime scene response unit that do blood stain pattern analysis. We are also all trained in the identification of those biological fluids, doing a screening test as well as a confirmatory test for blood.
I don't want to be referred to as grumpy, but I'm just going to ask if you can just kind of keep your answers down a little bit to like maybe a yes and a sentence after that.
Okay.
Okay. So when you go to a crime scene, you're usually with a team. In other words, like Maureen Hartnett might be there, right?
Correct.
And other state troopers might be there searching the area, right?
Correct.
And one of the things that you are doing is relying, if you will, on your associates or other people that are working that particular crime scene to do appropriate and adequate testing of substances, right?
Correct.
So, for example, and again, when you're investigating on a murder case and you're dealing with substances that are deposited, for example, in that bedroom, the master bedroom, it's not appropriate, if you will, to speculate that something is blood, and that's why it's referred to as a red-brown stain, right?
Correct. We use...
But your experience is such that you have a wealth of knowledge as to the ability to draw an inference as to what it might be, right?
We're not able to look at a red-brown stain and call it blood. We call it by adjectives, so it would be deemed as a red-brown stain. We have to wait until we do a confirmatory test to say whether we call it human blood or not.
So when you say a confirmatory test, you're referring to the fact that you have a screening test that you can do that initially would determine if it's possibly blood, right?
Correct.
Then it goes to the next phase, which would be a confirmatory test, which Ms. Hartnett would do, right?
Correct.
And then you go to the determination as to whether it's animal or human. It might be a primate blood, but it could be a human blood, and then you determine that it's human blood, right?
The next step after Maureen is actual DNA, so it will tell you whether it's human or not human and whose blood it actually is.
Okay. So we know that there was a transfer stain from the inside of the house, if you will, onto that ledge on the right-hand side of the window, right?
I believe it was on the left-hand side.
Okay, so as you're looking out the window, it's your understanding that the smudge, if you will, that was on that window was on the left-hand side?
I believe so.
Looking at Exhibit 106. That shows this first floor window, right?
Correct.
And then farther up, it shows.
Thank you so
the
much,
second
White
floor,
Lotus.
right?
Correct.
So if one was standing on the inside of the master bedroom and leaned on it with blood on their hand or red substance, it would be on the right-hand side of that ledge on the window, right?
Correct. The one on the outside was on the right-hand side. The one on the inside, I believe, was on the left-hand side.
Now, you know that that was not tested, right?
I don't know if it was tested.
All right, you don't know what it is, right?
I called it a red-brown stain.
But the bottom line is, in your experience, looking at that bedroom with all of what you determined in the investigation to be blood, the inference that you would draw is that that's blood from
Yeah.
somebody's hand, right?
Correct, and that is what is stated in my report. We infer that it is blood that we are examining.
Okay. So it shows in Exhibit 105, the same window with the little hornet ball or that substance that was injected, like insulation is what I think you described it. That also has red-brown substance on it, correct?
I don't know from that picture. I only looked at the stain that was on the windowsill.
Right. Did you look at at all that object? 'Cause-
I did not, just
okay. Would you agree that underneath that window would be the two equidistant, if you will, red-brown stains on the shingles, right?
correct.
And that would be an object or something that has blood, or we don't know if it's blood, but red-brown stain on hands or something that was a transfer onto that side of the house, right?
Correct.
Other areas of the bedroom, for example, counsel showed you the door coming into the bedroom and there were two drop marks of the red-brown stains. You know, those were never even tested. I'm just saying, this is a murder case. It was never tested, right? But you're assuming fairly that that would be blood, right?
I don't know whether they were tested, but I deemed those that they were blood in my examination.
And blood on the doorknob itself, too, so that from the inside of the bed.
Thank you for the 5 gifted, Penny.
The windowsill?
No, the doorknob.
I don't know of any red-brown stains on the doorknob.
Okay. Now, the knife, photograph of the knife, and I know people can recall that, that has that linear stain that you referred to that you were able to observe, correct?
Correct.
And looking at Exhibit 162, that would show the left side that you were referring to as to the red marks or the blood, if you will, on the window, right?
Correct. That was the left side interior of the window that I examined.
I stand corrected when I say, I was talking about the other side, but it's in both. It's on the right hand and the other side, right?
Correct.
So that would be, again, drawing an inference, would be somewhat conceivable with a person with blood on their hands leaning on the window. This portion of the hand out here, this portion of the hand on the inside, leaving the transfer, right?
A hand or some sort of bloody object, yes.
Right. And the knife also has the transfer that you can see. Now, is that coagulated blood, do you know?
In which area?
But with a knife, I mean, you see that linear line? It almost looks like the knife was put down with blood on it, and then it coagulated, or it got sticky, I guess, and then it was moved again. Is that
So I wouldn't call it coagulation, so if you're referring to these
Yes,
areas right
the linear
here,
line, yeah.
those were red-brown circular stains that were actually on top of the linear. I could not determine what they came from, so I did not give them any sort of
Okay.
bloodstain pattern terminology. But they were on top of the linear line.
All right, and you would agree with me that one of the inferences that would possibly be drawn is that something banged into it or moved it, one or the other.
Yes, correct, to get that original linear line and then for the knife to be in a different position.
Now, the photograph in Exhibit 45 is the mirror,
Correct.
and then you were referring to the drip marks on the mirror, right? I'm having trouble here again, but there we go.
So I referred to them either as drip stains or spatter stains because
Right,
I was
and
not able.
That would be consistent with some type of a violent movement, would it not? I mean, if the person's cutting their throat, for example, and they're cast off onto the mirror, or leaning, I guess you said at an angle.
So it would be either due to gravity or due to blood in flight. So a force applied, sending that blood to land on there, or drip due to gravity.
And blood in flight, the inference would be that it's cast off, if you will, from the knife, going in a particular direction towards the mirror, right?
It would be a spatter stain coming off of any sort of blood source, whether it be the tip of a knife, a cut on the hand, something
Okay.
in flight.
Go ahead, Your Honor, thank you.
Redirect?
Thank you. So you were asked about the documentation and collection of samples of red-brown stains at a scene, and that there is an initial test done at the scene typically to determine if it might be blood, correct?
Correct.
And what kind of test is that?
We do a screening test called the Kastle-Meyer test. So it identifies possible blood. It does not identify whether it's human or animal, though.
And when that test is positive, but you have a limited sample, you sometimes skip the confirmatory step and send it right to DNA for testing.
Correct. If it's a limited sample, so a smaller stain, like something like a spatter stain, we may not do the in-between step, which is our confirmatory test, because we don't want to use up any portion that we've collected. So we would go right to DNA for that testing if it's a smaller sample.
And then the DNA testing can tell you if that red-brown stain is from a human and potentially which human it's from.
Yeah, we identify who it is from. We don't identify as human because we only do a human DNA test.
And defense counsel asked you about the red-brown stains on the windowsill, the one on the exterior and the interior, and asked if it could be from someone leaning out the window, correct?
Correct.
Could it also be from someone hanging out the window holding on to in those spots?
Correct.
Nothing further?
Wouldn't there be drops? And, you know, if somebody was bleeding significantly from cuts on their wrist to the extent that one of the marks on the shingle you said had a drip on it, right?
So depending on the amount of blood where that contact is coming into place is what is deposited.
So if somebody was going to climb out the window and hang on the ledge and then like do a Spider-Man and go down the side of the shingles, they would leave a smear going all the way down on the shingles, wouldn't they?
If they came in contact the entire way down, yes, there would be a transfer all the way down.
Anything further?
No.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Thank you.
And counsel, could I just talk to you? Second, sidebar.
Sidebar. I have a feeling they're going to be done for the day. That's what I think too, Remy. I think they're going to conclude for the day. I do have our event set up for tomorrow. And when I end this stream today, you'll be sent right over there. And you can click the notification and we'll zip, zoom through it tomorrow. I'll get some sleep, much needed sleep tonight. We were up roasting all night. We had that pig on the what do you call it? On the spit. The pig was on the spit last night. Dude, I double dog dare her to do a J Zingo. I don't know where the zing comes in though. Probably because she's zinging over there all the time. Zing. It was even a late night for the West Coasters, Penny.
Jury,
Here we go.
rather than start another witness and break it up, I'm going to excuse you till tomorrow, all right? I don't think we'd finish with this next witness anyway.
I love
So
this
I'm gonna
judge's
excuse
voice.
you. Now, tomorrow's schedule, we are not going to be sitting in the afternoon, all right? I can tell you that. So,
What?
I'm going to ask you to be here at 9 o'clock. Remember, I'm going to ask you those same questions, same instructions. Don't talk about
Did
this.
he say
Don't
no
do any
court
research,
tomorrow
Don't watch
afternoon?
anything. Don't listen to anything about this. I appreciate all the work you've done so far. I appreciate all your time. And so I'm going to ask you to follow those and continue to follow those instructions. And I'll see you tomorrow morning, and we'll get right back to the case. Okay?
Court, all rise.
Should we start on time then?
Place them on the chairs.
Stand up!
Well, they're not going to have lunch, so I guess we'll start on time. Because they're only doing the morning. Cal Tato, it was so funny. That's what we'll do. We'll just start on time tomorrow. They'll probably do a break. I'll set it for 9 a.m.
All right. So anything we
9:30?
need to address at this point?
I'll do 9:30.
All right, so like I said, the schedule tomorrow will start at 9 o'clock. We'll go until till 1 o'clock, and then we will not sit tomorrow afternoon. So with that, everybody has a nice evening. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Thank you.
Sit down.
What stands in recess?
We stand in recess. Do I feel that everyone in this trial is begrudgingly going through the motions? Well, kind of. I think a lot of the medical professionals are, Pines, because there are civil suits that were filed in January by Patrick and Lindsay. So a lot of what happens in this trial will affect their civil suits, if you will. So I will see you guys in the morning at 9 a.m. You guys have a great Tuesday night. Thank you for joining me. Everybody stay safe. We'll run our little credits and then we'll get on out of here. See you guys in the morning. Bye, guys. Thank you again. Thank you, White Lotus. Thank you, Penny. Thanks, everyone. Hit the like button if you're replaying. Bye.